The keys hit the table with a sharp metallic clatter, sliding across the polished oak toward my brother, not me. My mother's words hung in the kitchen air like poison gas. "You're a failure. Just a burden we won't carry anymore. Get out." Each syllable burned through my skin while my lungs struggled for air. The room seemed to compress around me, walls inching closer with each heartbeat, as my father refused to meet my eyes. His gaze fixed on some invisible point beyond the window, shoulders stiff with practiced indifference, as if the daughter he'd raised for 36 years had simply evaporated into nothing. A plastic grocery bag with my name scrawled across it sat on the counter, containing mail, some leftovers, and apparently the sum total of what remained of my place in this family. My fingernails dug half-moons into my palms as I stood motionless, the family business ledgers I'd organized still open on the table beside me, the floor I'd scrubbed hours earlier gleaming under the harsh kitchen lights. "My name is Olivia Jensen. I'm 36 and a former family business manager. This is the story of how I built a legacy from the ashes they left me in." I didn't scream or beg that night. The betrayal left me numb, mechanical. I simply picked up the bag, walked past the framed photos of business grand openings I'd helped orchestrate, past the awards with my brother's name engraved beneath my work, and through the door that had been held open in silent expectation of my departure. For 2 years, I disappeared from their world. No calls, no holiday appearances, no response to their calculated voicemails that arrived with clockwork precision every few months. Each message carried the same carefully crafted guilt wrapped in formal politeness, never once containing the words sorry or mistake. Instead, I channeled every dismissive comment, every "you'll never amount to anything" into something tangible, something mine. With my modest savings, money they never believed I had, I purchased a small plot of land 20 miles from their neighborhood. I worked double shifts at a garden center and as a night bookkeeper, pouring my exhaustion and determination into blueprints and building permits. Every brick laid was another word they'd said I couldn't do. Every nail hammered was another time they'd chosen my brother over me. The construction became my therapy, the growing structure my redemption. And all the while, they knew nothing of it. Until the day my phone lit up with my brother's number, one I'd never saved but instantly recognized. His voice came through breathless, panicked. "Dad, you need to see this place." Then, as if I weren't even on the line, "She built a whole life without us." The call ended abruptly, leaving me standing in my nearly completed kitchen, staring at the custom glass doors that opened onto a view they never thought I deserved. For the first time in 2 years, I smiled without restraint. I knew curiosity would bring them sniffing around eventually. Rejection always circles back when the discarded start to shine. 2 days after the call, I spotted my father's Mercedes crawling past my stone entrance gate, slowing just enough for him to stare openly at what I'd created. I stood on my wraparound porch, tea mug warming my hands, and simply existed in his line of sight, not waving, not calling out, just being visible in a way they had tried to erase. As his car disappeared around the bend, something inside me finally released, a breath I'd been holding for 2 years, waiting for this moment of witness. That night, my inbox pinged with an email from my mother. Subject line: "We should talk. Olivia, we didn't mean for things to get so distant. We were just trying to do what was best for everyone. Your brother needed help starting out. You seemed fine on your own. Let's reconnect. Maybe we can come see the house sometime." No apology. No ownership. Just historical revision, attempting to rewrite themselves into the success story they'd tried to prevent. I didn't reply, but I forwarded the email to myself with the subject: "When they pretend they didn't push you." The next morning, I drove into town with new purpose, selecting paint samples for a mural I'd been conceptualizing for the side wall facing the road. Not words, they'd twisted those enough, but something visual, undeniable. A message in color and form that couldn't be reinterpreted or dismissed. 3 weeks passed as I worked on my statement piece, each brushstroke reclaiming another fragment of my narrative. Then, one Sunday afternoon while planting lavender along the stone path I'd laid by hand, I heard car doors slam in my driveway. They arrived unannounced, my father first, then my mother tottering on inappropriate heels that sank into the gravel with each precarious step. They didn't knock, just positioned themselves at the edge of my porch like tourists at an exhibit, surveying what they hadn't helped build. My mother's eyes scanned the wooden beams, the iron lanterns, the detailing she'd never believed I could afford. "You did all this yourself?" she asked, voice tinged with accusation, as if I must have stolen the opportunity from someone more deserving. I stood up slowly, garden soil still clinging to my gloves, and said nothing. The silence stretched between us like razor wire. My father cleared his throat. "You should have told us you were doing so well." I tilted my head slightly. "You told me I was a burden. I assumed my silence would be a relief." My mother flinched, not from guilt, but from being quoted accurately. "We were under stress," she muttered, eyes darting away from mine. "Your brother was going through a lot. We didn't think you'd thrive." I offered *survive*, I corrected. She had no response. I gestured toward the now-finished mural spanning the side of the house, a young woman planting seeds while faceless figures tossed stones behind her back. Above it, painted in gold, watered by rejection, rooted in self. They stared at it, momentarily speechless. "I don't need you to like it," I said evenly. "I didn't build this for applause." They left without seeing the inside of my home. No hugs, no tears, no promises to make things right. Just two diminishing figures in my rearview mirror and a field of newly planted lavender stretching toward the horizon. Days passed, then a week. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't cold, it was earned. Then, without warning, a message arrived from my brother. A photo of the family business, the one they'd handed him on a silver platter, with windows boarded up, a crooked for-lease sign planted in the dirt outside. The caption read, "Hope your little garden's worth more than our legacy." Our legacy? The same legacy I wasn't good enough to inherit? The business I'd cleaned after school, taken inventory for, worked weekends in without pay? He'd run it into the ground, hiring friends instead of qualified people, ignoring the books I'd once meticulously maintained, refusing advice from those who knew better. He hadn't built it, so he didn't know how to sustain it. And now he was furious that I hadn't crumbled in his shadow. I didn't respond, but I printed the photo and taped it behind my front door, not out of spite, but as a reminder that not all gifts are blessings, and not all exclusions are losses. The next day, I opened the envelope that had been sitting on my desk for months. The deed to my land, fully paid. No loans, no cosigners, just my name in black and white. I signed the back, stamped the official record, and filed it with the county. Ownership, not just of property, but of story, of self. They had given my brother walls. They had given me air. He had suffocated inside his inheritance while I had learned to breathe on my own. And the air was sweeter than anything money had ever bought. The story might have ended there, but people who rewrite history never leave loose ends. My mother emailed again, this time attaching a photo of herself and my brother at a charity gala, both dressed in expensive evening wear. Caption: "Still standing. Family always finds its way." No greeting, no context. Just a not-so-subtle reminder that they still had each other. Still standing. I stared at that phrase longer than I should have because standing and growing aren't the same thing. And roots once starved don't return to soil that failed to nourish them. So I made a rare social media post, a photo of the greenhouse I'd just finished building, my hands covered in rich soil, with a caption that read, "Some of us weren't handed anything, so we built everything we needed by hand." In silence. The response was unexpected. Hundreds of shares, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. "I needed to see this today. You're doing more than growing. You're thriving." I wasn't looking for validation, but for once, I felt seen on my own terms. That evening, my neighbor Rebecca stopped by with freshly baked bread. She glanced at the mural and asked, "What inspired it?" I paused before answering. "Family. And what blooms after them." She smiled like she understood. And I think she did, because sometimes family builds your foundation, and sometimes they're just the fire that teaches you how to rebuild. Either way, you grow. Fall arrived with amber leaves and early dusk. I spent most evenings on my porch now, tea in hand, a sense of peace finally settling into my chest. That's when the letter arrived, not an email or text, but a handwritten letter with my name carefully penned on the envelope. It was from my father. Olivia. I drove past again last week. I don't think you saw me. The place looks beautiful. You did more with your piece of land than I ever did with the whole business. I still don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to undo the way we hurt you. But I wanted to say I see it now. We got it wrong. I hope you're happy. Dad. There was no manipulation, no request, just words, late, but almost honest. I didn't cry. I didn't write back. But I folded the letter and placed it inside the same folder that held my property deed. Not as a keepsake, but as a record, proof that people can change their words, even if they never change their choices. Later that night, I sat under string lights in my backyard, watching shadows dance across the mural. My land was quiet, but my heart wasn't empty, because this, all of it, had taught me that home isn't inherited. It's claimed, built with hands no one believed in, protected by boundaries no one respected, and filled with love that doesn't ask for proof. They may have given my brother the title, but I had made something untouchable. Winter came with its own kind of silence, not the kind I had once feared, but the kind I now chose. My father's letter was the last communication I received from any of them. No follow-ups, no visits, no staged family interventions. They had said their piece, and I had heard it. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the table where you were taught hunger. Instead, I continued growing. I expanded the greenhouse and began hosting weekend workshops for women in the area. Women like me, quiet builders, late bloomers, daughters who had been told to settle for silence. After one Saturday class, a participant lingered behind. I know you don't talk much about your past, she said softly, but did you build all this because of them? I smiled, not sad, not bitter, just honest. No, I replied. I built it because of me. They were just the reason I had to start from scratch. She nodded as if she understood, perhaps too well. Later that evening, I stood on my back porch looking at the mural. I'd added to it the previous week, a small detail. A second figure standing beside the woman planting seeds, not helping her, not handing her tools, just watching, letting her bloom on her own. It represented something I hadn't realized I'd found. Witnesses, not saviors. People who saw me as I was, not as I failed to be. Family, it turns out, isn't always blood. Sometimes it's those who show up after the fire and sit beside the ash without asking you to pretend it never burned. Spring returned like a soft exhale. My lavender field stretched wider, buzzing with bees, swaying in the breeze. The greenhouse thrived, and so did I. Then came one final delivery, a legal notice informing me that my brother had defaulted on the business loan. They had used the family home as collateral. It was gone. The empire they had given him had crumbled completely. The inheritance they thought was legacy had become debt. For a moment, I wondered if I should feel something, pity, vindication, regret. But all I felt was distance, like watching the ending of a movie I'd walked out of years ago. A week later, a local magazine asked to feature my property, the lavender fields, the murals, the workshops. They titled the piece From Discarded to Rooted, a woman who built backward and bloomed anyway. I didn't post it online. Didn't send it to my family. Didn't need to, because my revenge was never meant to be loud. It was always this, living well without them. That weekend, a little girl from the neighborhood brought me a drawing, stick figures standing in front of a purple field. One of them had curly hair and muddy gloves. Below it, she had written, "I want to grow up just like you. The kind of lady who makes things stay alive." I hung it beside the mural because sometimes the real legacy isn't in what you're given. It's in what you plant, what you protect, and what grows because you refuse to stay buried.